Welcome back to Miss Holcombe's YouTube channel. Like and subscribe and hit that bell.
Roll Tide!
We have a couple of new vocab words today. You will notice that the sheet that's on the board does not look like what's on yours. The one that you have is where we're diving right into practicing identifying them. The definitions are at the top of your sheet. So yours looks like this. It's reminding you that corresponding angles are congruent, alternate interior angles are congruent, alternate exterior angles are congruent, consecutive interior angles are supplementary. We already know vertical angles are congruent. We already know linear pair angles add up to 180. The new stuff, the new vocab words are transversal,
Nancy, Abby.
she's on the way. Corresponding angles, alternate interior, alternate exterior, and consecutive interior. Notice the two I did not highlight. You already know them. Let's go to those first. Supplementary angles. Two or more angles whose sum is 180. So if you look right here, the supplementary angles are right here side by side. So if one of them measures, say, 100 degrees, the other one would measure 80 degrees. They also, in this case, they form a linear pair because they make a straight line. Vertical angles are two angles whose sides are opposite rays. Remember to think of the double flashlight, or to think of the, what did we say, hourglass. I think we said the back-to-back V's. Two lines that cross, bam, you have vertical angles, and they're congruent. This was not to say that they're congruent. That was to say that there's that 180 straight angle. We do have some new vocab words. The first one is transversal. If something is a transversal, it is a rogue line that is cutting across two or more lines. So if you look at this picture, the transversal would be this line. Stand by. Would be this line right here. That's the transversal because it's cutting across those other two lines, right? Y'all stay with me. Don't go to sleep on me. Transversal is the one that's cutting across it. When you have two lines cut by a transversal, if they are parallel lines, then there's a lot of other relationships formed. The first relationship is corresponding angles. These are angles that lie in the same position, hence the name. They're in corresponding positions, so they're called corresponding angles. If you look at this example right here, I want you to focus your attention on the four quadrants formed by having two lines cut by a transversal. You have quadrants 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you see that? Mm-hmm. Notice where the ones are. Top right, top right.
So
those are called corresponding angles. They are congruent. Notice where the twos are. Top left, top left. They are congruent. Notice the threes, I'm running out of room, they would be congruent. Notice the fours, they would be congruent. Those are called corresponding angles because they're in corresponding positions, okay? So looking at this, this would be congruent to this. The next two, what's the only difference in these two words? Alternate interior, alternate exterior. There you go. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Alternate interior angles will be inside the lines. On the inside, alternate means opposite, right? opposite sides of your transversal, but inside the parallel lines. Alternate exterior means they're going to be outside the parallel lines. They're on the outside of the parallel lines, but they're on opposite sides of the transversal. Are you all with me? Those angles are congruent as well. So like this would be congruent to this. This would be congruent to this. The last one is the only one that is different. Supplementary angles are angles who add up to 180. Consecutive interior angles are angles that are consecutive, means side by side. Oops. Consecutive means side by side. Interior means on the inside. If you notice, you have this angle here and this angle here. Notice they're both to the right of the transversal, but they're in between the parallel lines. Do you see that? They cannot be equal because this one is obtuse and this one is acute. So do not confuse consecutive interior angles for being equal. It's not possible. One of them's obtuse and one of them's acute. So it should be obvious they can't be equal, so it's got to be that other thing Ms. Holcombe talked about, which means they add up to equal what?
180.
180. Okay? Go to the sheet that you have in front of you, which is page 22. You need to put 22 on it. At the top of the paper, you will see where there are shortcuts to remind you what is equal and what's not. These are examples of finding the missing angle measures from just knowing one angle. When your two lines that are cut by transversal are parallel, then all of these angles are formed and all of these relationships are true. Okay? You're going to hear the phrase, and I would love for you to write it. You're going to hear parallel lines cut by a transversal. This is what you're going to hear. Parallel lines cut by transversal. If the directions say the following parallel lines have been cut by a transversal, then bam, all of this is true. Okay? Every time. Caleb, are you writing? I need you to write. I promise you've never seen it before. Okay, so looking at number 1. All right, I can adjust it to right there. So looking at number 1, what does it give us in the directions? Okay, the first thing I'm going to tell you when solving these types of problems is label your picture. Label the picture because then you're going to immediately be able to find vertical angles. You're going to also find the linear pair, straight angles. Then that yields more vertical angles. Then you branch out to the new ones, okay? So this is 65 degrees here, right? This is your transversal. If you want to get a highlighter and practice trying to help your mind to see the transversal, you can. I have highlighters over here. I would probably highlight these vocab words so that you remember the new vocab words that we have and also the relationships. We already know vertical angles are congruent. We already know linear pairs, supplementary. So the only new ones are these 4. These are new that you have to know. Okay? All right, if this is 65 right here, what do I know? Now, there's multiple ways to go about this. So I'm going to try and guide you to it. Immediately, you can label the vertical angle. Angle 3 is vertical, so that means it's what? 65. And you can say vertical. This is what they're looking for right here. The word that helps you justify it. Okay, and then you can come back and say if 1 is 65, 2 would be, and how do you get that? Supplementary. They are a linear pair, which means they are supplementary. If you want to abbreviate supplementary, you can put supplementary or you can put linear pair right there. But that's the relationship between angles 1 and 2. So you could say it's supplementary to angle 1. Let's write that. Angle 3 was vertical to angle 1, right? So vertical to angle 1. Okay, if angle 2 is 115, then what's angle 4?
115.
Why?
Vertical.
Vertical. This is 115, and you're going to say that it's vertical. We can abbreviate this to vert to angle 2. Right? So if I give you one angle of any 2 lines crossed, you should be able to fill in all 4 angles. Now we've got to, you are halfway done. Now we've got to somehow connect this mess up here to this one down here. And the reason we're allowed to connect these is because they are parallel. If they were not parallel, then there's no relationship. But because they're parallel, that means that these lines have a tight relationship. They're running the same all the way across. So when this transversal splits right here, this 65 here is also where down here? 5, because it's corresponding, right? Let's write it's corresponding to angle 1. That's one way to get it. Now, if 5 is 65, it's vertical to 7, which is also 65, right? So this is vertical to angle, what was it? 5. Now, angles 6 and 8. You can get 6 and 8 by doing linear pair, but let me show you another way that you can get it. What is angle 3? Okay, I'm going to redraw this picture where there's not as much writing. Angle 3 is right here, correct? Okay, we said it's 65. Here, let me show you an example of consecutive interior angles, because it does come up every now and then, and it's the one that most people forget. If this is 65 right here, and I want to know this angle, don't you dare set them equal. This is what I was saying. This is what type of angle? Obtuse, and then what's this one? Acute. They cannot be equal. So if they're not equal, it's that other thing where they add up to equal 180. So to get this, you would do 180 minus 65, which is 115. So if you have a picture in front of you that doesn't have all of the other information where you could do, oh, this is a linear pair right here. You can also get there by doing consecutive interior.
So we can put consecutive to equal.
So multiple ways to fill this in. If you said this is 115, you could say it's either consecutive interior to angle 3, or you can say supplementary to angle 5. Multiple ways. There's no one right answer for this stuff. There's multiple right answers. However, there is only one right answer for this column. The column over here is trying to get you to just practice recognizing the vocab words, because you need to know them. I'm going to say, let's practice it. I'm going to say consecutive interior to angle 3. Let's go ahead and practice that one. Now, if 6 is 115, then so is 8, and that's because they're vertical. This was vertical to angle 8. So go on to the next problem and fill it in. Go on to the next one. Do the next one. Thank you. 6, right? It was 6. Yes. Thank you. This should say to angle 6 because it is angle 8. It can't be vertical to itself. Good catch. So you should be doing the next one. Remember what I said, there's only one right answer for the column of numbers. There's multiple right answers for how you looked at it. If you finish that one and you feel pretty confident, you can turn to the back, and it is the same line of questions. The pictures are just getting slightly more challenging. These pictures are getting more complicated as you go to the back. So it may help to get a highlighter and to highlight your parallel lines. Because your parallel lines, or if you want to call them your railroad tracks, are where all of those angles are formed. So if you look at example 4, you have 2 parallel lines, and how many transversals? 2. You have 2 transversals, which means, now they're totally different. So the transversal over here, you have to look at it carefully, and this is why highlighting may help. You've got to find the angles that deal with that transversal and those parallel lines, like 3 does. This does not separate. They would have to be combined. Does that make sense? 1 and 2. 4 is touching both. Like, look for the angles touching both the parallel line and the transversal. 3 is touching both. 4 is touching both. 5 is not. 6 is not. 7 is, 8 is, 11 is, 12 is. So those are the angles you can find easily. Then you come over here and you repeat. Which ones are touching just, so I have to back those up. All right, so what's touching now with this one? This is the transversal we're focusing on now. So you've got 6 and 1, 9, 10, 13, and 14. 3 is not. You found 3 in the last one, though.
Oh, yeah.
So if you look at it that way, then you can find them, and it should end up leaving you with just a few left. And the ones left, I bet you use the 180, that they add up to 180. Okay?
Example 6 looks too hard for me.
I want you to try it.
41.
You do know how to do it.
But like, I don't know what to subtract 135.
What angle are you looking for? It also helps if you label your picture as you go. Like you've got 7, 8, 9, all those. I would try your best to write that in the picture. Wait, why'd you put 65?
Only
75.
What would this be?
Oh,
Yeah.
I just got like
No, it's just the straight line's gonna also include 5. Look down here, you have a corresponding angle that you can find up here. What is 11? 11 corresponds to what angle? No.
Angle 7 is going
That's
to be
interior.
9.
Those are alternate exterior. Those are
Right.
That's the one.